Hand me gold, you thieving hoods. You got more loot than Tiger Woods.
Hello World Wide Web, I'm Dr. Shado, the internet personality with the best hair. And last week's second video, the Lost Leprechauns 2 and 3, I got a pretty strong reception, very positive. Except from YouTube Analytics, who were complaining that the 11-minute video didn't have at least 13 minutes of watch time, but never mind that, I heard you guys loud and clear, more of that! Which is good, and also kind of difficult. I was sort of a lightning in a bottle event. I found the alleged draft, it was summarized very well. I could easily make it into a video and have fun with it the whole way. I felt inspired, and inspiration is the best fuel for creativity. Now, there are plenty of other movies out there that never made it off the ground, but there is a pretty big problem with the vast majority of them. First, there are the scripts that never got made, such as Dennis Etchinson's Halloween 4. There's plenty to go over in that situation. We've got an entire script. But that's 111 pages worth of stuff to cover, or summarize, and that's kinda a lot when a second video a week is supposed to be something much easier and faster to put together. The second problem is that a whole lot of unmade movies never even got that far. They didn't get scripted, they were just pitched and shot down immediately, and I'm gonna have to get a lot more creative exploring what could have been in that scenario, and that's exactly what we're doing today with a look at Lost Leprechaun pitches. Starting with a Leprechaun sequel pitch allegedly by Warwick Davis himself. Possibly sick of the Leprechaun's various attempts and failures throughout the franchise to get married, this time he wanted a movie that's entire focus was on a Leprechaun who already had a wife and kids and parents, an entire Leprechaun family. And that is absolutely all the information I have on that little pitch, so it's gonna take some creativity to imagine just what that could have looked like. Meet the Leprechauns! Husband Killian Leprechaun with his loving wife Eileen, their son Sean, daughter Matey, and baby Fia, not to mention Grandpa Leprechaun Lorcan.
Matey, what did you learn in school today? Mrs. Grimshaw really doesn't like it when her yardstick turns into a snake.
Boy, another hard day at the office. That old Dardy be working me to the bone.
Daka, are we going to the lake now?
Oh, not today, me lad. I'm exhausted.
But I wants to catch me goldfish. Now, who could that be? Why, it's O'Dardy. What brings you to our lair?
Oh, well, your husband invited me by for a lovely homemade potato dinner.
You did what? Eileen, I'm sorry, but I really need this promotion, so if you just help me butter him up, maybe we can—
Oh, that does it!
Dad, what are you—
Shut up! You useless excuse for a leprechaun! You know, back in my day, we got things done. We had a problem with some stupid bastard like this, and we'd pummel him over the head with a shillelagh! There. Now where's me gold? The pitches don't end there. We have one from Darren Lynn Boosman, The Wild West. And before you think this is just another genre crossover, think about it, it actually works. The California gold rush was a thing. There's gold in them thar hills, and the Leprechaun is all about that gold. We already saw the Leprechaun makes a fine cowboy in Leprechaun 4 in space, so why not lean further into that for a proper western? I see you've got me gold. This town ain't big enough for the two of us. Well, I mean, clearly it is size-wise, but either way, I'm gonna shoot you. Prospectors, adventurers, cowboys, and a leprechaun from one of the minds behind the Saw franchise. But unfortunately right now, the closest we're gonna get to that is if someone modded the Leprechaun into Red Dead Redemption 2. But when it comes to off-the-wall Leprechaun movie ideas, few are as zany as Vampirechaun. Both in its conception and its eventual shelving, Vampirechaun is actually the brainchild of Mark Jones, who wrote and directed the original movie. It's exactly what it sounds like, too. Warwick Davis stars as a leprechaun, and the leprechaun is also a vampire.
Who's that?
I'm not here to chew on a spud, nor here to smoke up some bud. I'm here in your flat, transformed to a rat, as I've come to suck your blood.
But as Mark didn't actually own the rights to the Leprechaun character, he had to get a lawyer and make sure that he had everything squared away and was able to make the Vampirechaun movie that was different enough that he could still go about doing that. And as such, progress was moving smoothly on funding and preparation until everything kind of had to come to a screeching halt because Mark sued his lawyer because his lawyer wasn't actually a lawyer. Not that the people who had the rights to the franchise just okayed everything that came across their desks either, as Brian Trenchard Smith, who directed Leprechaun 3 and Leprechaun 4 in space, to rousing success on the straight-to-video market, figured he had a great idea for a fifth Leprechaun movie. Leprechaun in the White House! A benevolent but bumbling president would have to deal with the Leprechaun as it torments him and the entire First family and disgraces the Oval Office. As for the 90 minutes of running time, they make pretty much the same political jokes we've been hearing nonstop for the last 20 years. Allegedly, that wasn't why this particular pitch got ditched, though. Trimark believed the idea of the Leprechaun in Washington, D.C. was just too out there to be taken seriously. Keep in mind, this was after the one where he goes to space. That's like switching Saints Row 3 and 4. But perhaps the craziest idea of all was one pitched by the studio itself. After Freddy vs. Jason hit the scene and started lighting up the horror circles, Trimark scrambled to figure out which horror characters they had the rights to and which could be pitched against one another. To that end, the idea of Candyman vs. the Leprechaun popped up. The reason it was never made? Simple. They called up Tony Todd and asked him, "Hey, you want to do Candyman vs. Leprechaun?" And he was like, no. He thought that would cheapen the Candyman franchise and it would be absolutely ridiculous and make no sense, and no one would take it seriously after that point. Which, is true, but come on, Candyman versus the Leprechaun. Though this is certainly one pitch that is a hell of a lot harder to figure out. When it comes to a horror icon brawl, there needs to be some driving force that causes them to fight. The Leprechaun and Candyman can't just be in the same room together, they have to want to kill each other. But also, getting them in the same room together is an important step. The Leprechaun has been all over the place without any rhyme or reason. Well, with rhymes, but you get what I mean. He's already been to the hood, and more often than any other location, so that's a start. So we need to get the Leprechaun and Candyman to want to kill each other. For the Leprechaun to want to take someone out, they need to have his gold. For Candyman, they have to summon him or otherwise be involved in his curse. Now we could spend all day musing over what rules exist in each franchise that can be exploited to put them together, and haha, they're fighting and it all makes sense and it's all wrapped up, but I think that's overcomplicating things, honestly. Think about it. Both of these franchises have one very important thing in common that will make this a lot easier. Retconning. Retroactive continuity comes to save the day. The Leprechaun's lore is practically rewritten every single movie, and Candyman's backstory is messed around with each time he's brought out for a movie as well, changing around important locations in his life or adding entirely new artifacts to his backstory to tie them into a new movie. So we have an in here. Candyman can return the same way he always does. His legend lives on and someone wants to prove that it's all just a bunch of hooey, says his name 3 times in a mirror, proves that it actually is real, and then things get interesting. Well, Daniel Robitaille maybe just so happened to have a fancy golden pocket watch we neglected to mention until now. And this is the actual, real, true key to breaking the curse. For real this time. But where is the watch? Oh, well, over the years it just so happened to get into the collection of a leprechaun who isn't so happy with a pesky human barging into his lair and stealing his gold. Resulting in the Leprechaun joining the fray as well, making the body count rise as he steals back his golden pocket watch. But now that its location has been revealed while Daniel was in the mortal plane, he can sense it and he wants it too. So Candyman wants the golden pocket watch, the Leprechaun wants the golden pocket watch, and the human who started this whole mess wants the golden pocket watch because, something, second cousin twice removed, they've got blood in this fight as well. And just think of the banter. Candyman comes in, freezes the scene. Every word, every syllable, pure poetry, commanding attention, respect, and fear. And the Leprechaun just spits out a limerick and flips him the bird. Some might say that the Leprechaun wouldn't have the fairest of fights against Candyman, what with the fact that Warwick and Tony ain't exactly in the same weight class here. But hey, there have been plenty of different ways to kill a Leprechaun listed, and the last I checked, bees ain't one of them. Hell, in my opinion, we should bring back the wrought iron rule from Leprechaun 2 and say that Candyman's hook is made out of wrought iron just to make the fights interesting. Of course, the Leprechaun can't kill Candyman so easily either, except perhaps by some special means of destroying the golden pocket watch, but that wouldn't be something the Leprechaun would want to do. However, it would be a driving force for the human of the tale, trying to break the curse of Candyman for at least another movie. But if Candyman has a wrought iron hook to make him a real threat against the Leprechaun needs at least some means of doing some damage here. Which could very well be the human. Leppy kills the human, Candyman returns to the spirit world, the curse remains, and he keeps his gold. So the conflict is that the human wants to destroy the locket and the curse, the Leprechaun wants to kill the human to keep the gold, and can't ignore Candyman, who wants to regain the golden pocket watch to ensure the curse remains, giving him eternal life in death. giving us a very convoluted means to get these characters to want to kill each other, and we only had to rewrite their backstories a smidge to make it work. But how would it all end? It's one of those stories where no matter how it ends, it'll be interesting. Candyman could kill the Leprechaun and regain his watch, killing the human and coming out ultra victorious. Alternatively, the Leprechaun could kill the human, severing Candyman's ties to the world of the living for the time being and returning to his lair with his gold, rich and evil with ill-gotten gains. Then, of course, there's the mega happy ending. The Leprechaun is killed by Candyman, but before Candyman can regain the watch, the human gets a hold of it, and, I don't know, the climax takes place in a metal processing plant. They throw it into a smelter, breaking the curse, and coming out of the ordeal a few dozen friends short, but otherwise unharmed. And as long as we're talking about movies that only exist in my mind, all 3 endings were filmed and are on the disc in 4K. Anyway, that was the Leprechaun pitches. Most of them, anyway. I didn't mention Origins 2 or Leprechaun vs. Wishmaster, as I couldn't find any information about either of them being a serious consideration at any time. Still, with how absolutely bonkers the series ended up, it's fun to think how any of these ideas were considered too out there. After a new Leprechaun movie every year from 1993 to 1996, the series actually took a 4-year break before we got Leprechaun in the Hood in 2000. With all the ideas being thrown around, it's getting even harder to understand why. It's not like Leprechaun wasn't a hot commodity, no matter how ridiculous it got. It's kind of disappointing, though, that Candyman vs. Leprechaun got shot down so quickly. I'd at least like to have more to work with than the idea that got brought up and Tony Todd said no because just pulling a plot out of my ass. Now, I really want to see that movie. Though it did give me just enough to work with, being Candyman vs. Leprechaun, whereas I could muse just as much for how an Old West Leprechaun movie could be, but it's more fun to think about Lippy going at it with Danny. And I'm sure there are at least hundreds more pitches out there, most of which we'll never even know. Thank you all for watching. I've been Shado. And remember, horror isn't respected anyway, just have fun with it.
What if somebody's packing drugs in there? You just gonna apologize and give them your card? Huh? All right, let's listen.
A friend with weed is a friend indeed.
And thank you again. Like the video if you haven't yet. Subscribe if you haven't. If you have, check to make sure you're still subscribed. YouTube likes to unsubscribe people at random. And let us check out, Candyman, or Leprechaun, or random video. You're supposed to click one.